Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. We'll begin today's show focused on the office of the governor. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker recently signed new limits on welfare programs into law and a $100 per child tax refund. And he promised thousands of jobs with the Foxconn Economic Development Project. And here to fill us in on those things and more is Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor, Rebecca Kleefisch. Hi, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Always good to have you here. And like I said, there are several important issues that I'd like to discuss with you today, starting with these new limits on welfare programs. Governor Walker signed 9 pieces of legislation, and I really was hoping that you could help us break some of it down. So one piece of legislation would require parents with children between the ages of 6 and 18 to work or get job training or lose food share benefits after 3 months. So explain how this is all going down.
Sure. So instead of calling them limits, I think it's actually more of an opportunity because of something what you just said. You said work or get work training. So that's actually an opportunity. That's not limiting anything. In fact, that's giving you the shot at having more earning potential as opposed to less. The bummer about a lot of our entitlement programs is they slide kind of artificial ceilings over the top of folks' ability to rise, because when you hit a certain limit in your income, you bump up against that ceiling. You can't get that benefit anymore. And there are a lot of people who have to make really tough choices and determine, do I want to stay on this program and theoretically have the security of knowing this is coming, but yet essentially cut myself off for earning potential and being able to rise, climb the ladder to the American dream? Or do I want to skip doing this and just depend solely on my own ingenuity and initiative and hope that I'm going to get past this financial bump in the road? Tough choices, and we all have to make them every day. Everybody wakes up and makes tough choices. And so what this does is this gives people the opportunity to get some work training or go to work for a number of hours that were not available to everybody in the program. So this is called Food Share Employment Training, the Food Share program, which is more commonly known as food stamps. I think most people know of that name. Fewer people know what we call it in Wisconsin. Food stamps is actually a federal program that's administered by the states. We're no different. The state of Wisconsin administers the federal food stamps program. And all the states that get to participate have said over time, in most states, you know what, it's really tough to do something that the federal government actually requires. Most people don't realize that the federal government actually requires work for food stamps, the federal government. But the reason most people don't know that is because over time, many states have said, you know what, federal government, we'd like a waiver for that requirement because it's really hard to implement. But here's the thing, in Wisconsin, we have to do the hard thing right now. We have to train people to get back into the workforce because we have a 2.9% unemployment rate. There are a lot of people across the state that will be jumping on couches, excited that our unemployment rate has dropped so precipitously, because you'll remember back in 2010, early in that year, 9.2%. Wow. I mean, if you knew 100 people, probably 9 or 10 of them didn't have a job. I mean, it stunk. Our economy hurt people's hearts. It was really, really difficult. But today, we're in a very, very different situation. And we need everybody who can participate in our economy to participate in our economy. But there are a lot of people who are still on the sidelines of that big talent pipeline. You can tell that because there are still people who haven't realized that we have a lot of job opportunities. And I think the last time I was here, I shared with you and your viewers.
Thousands of jobs are available without people who had the skills to fill those jobs. I remember.
And so if I may, again, pump up this website. It's jobcenterofwisconsin.com. It's totally free. You go sign up, you put your resume together, and you have access to lots of employers. Well, every day our totally free job search website, which is like a Match.com for employers and potential employees, has between 97,000 and 100,000 openings.
Wow, that's interesting.
We need folks to jump into our talent pipeline, but there are a lot of folks who are on the sidelines who have not jumped in, and so this, what we call our Food Share Employment Training Program, will allow more people the access to the job training that was available since 2015 just for folks who were able-bodied without kids. Now we're making sure it's available to people who have school-age children. So not only are we allowing people to get this job training or go to work, because ultimately that's the goal of Food Share from the very beginning. I mean, we don't want you to always have this. We want you to just use your own paycheck and then start moving up the ladder to your American dream. I mean, we don't, that's not anyone's
I get that.
dream.
I guess my question is with this these jobs that are being offered and the training that's being offered, are people looking at a ceiling of how much money they're able to make because this is within a program, or are they really presented with opportunities to grow within a job to make more money depending on the level of skills that they have?
That's a great question. All of our entitlement programs, whether they are federal government funded or state government funded, are likely to have what we call an income test, which means they're going to take a look at how much you earn. And if you're earning $1 million and you want to apply for food share, food stamps, you're not going to pass the
Well, of
income
course
test.
not, yeah.
Right, but I think that's logical to say because you want to protect the taxpayer from someone who probably shouldn't be applying for that benefit, but you also want to protect the family that is truly struggling and
really
does need the help. But we want to make sure that we're actually giving the full measure of help there. I mean, are you going to fully help someone reach their goals if you don't give them training and they don't have another way to access that training because they didn't have enough money in the first place? So we're going to give them that food share employment training at the same time they're getting that food share benefit. So they're not going to have to worry about how they're going to get to the grocery store. And we're also going to make sure that they get the employability skills they need to get that first job and just nail it. And then once they're doing well there, then perhaps it's time to go in and ask for a raise. Or maybe it's time to work some more hours. And eventually, the hope is that folks aren't going to need that food shares check anymore, and they're just going to take their own paycheck to the grocery store.
And this is why it's important to have you here to talk about this, because sometimes you read the headlines and you hear, you know,
it is very hard.
The bullet points, but you really want to fully understand, especially those people who may be worried about, you know, the changes that are going to come about and what they may face.
It's an opportunity to get more training. We're opening this opportunity up for a second group of people. It worked really well with just our able-bodied, childless population. Now we want to afford the opportunity to other folks to get that job training because, like I said, we're living in a 2.9% unemployment world. Most labor market economists consider between 5 and 5.5% unemployment a fully employed economy. Yikes, we're way, way lower than that. And so we need to get everybody who can possibly work into the workforce because employers really need help. When you have 100,000 job postings and such low unemployment, you need workers who are currently outside that pipeline to jump in. Whether they're long-term unemployed or they're on one of our programs, or maybe they're somebody who has a disability. We know that 87% of folks are likelier to patronize a business that has a hiring practice of hiring folks with disabilities than not. I mean, these are folks who may want to jump in to our economy, our talent pipeline, but in the past have not seen a pathway to get there. So we're trying to create more pathways to jump in. It's good for those potential employees, but yeah, ultimately, it's good for the businesses who really, really, really need help fulfilling their customer demands.
So I was talking with Sherry Tussler, who's the Executive Director of Hunger Task Force. And obviously they deal with helping families who are in need of food on a daily basis. So if I'm correct, she said 43% of people already on food stamps are employed. So are these jobs going to offer them opportunities to make more money than they're already making? And really, who is going to really be there for the families who do end up losing the benefits that they've been used to getting?
So these are not government jobs necessarily that we're talking about here. So it's not like if you go through our Food Share Employment Training Program, you're going to start working at the Lieutenant Governor's office in order to make up the difference.
These are jobs that are open to everyone across the board.
Jobs, exactly.
Okay, so it's based on what those jobs pay.
But we do, but we do have a number of programs called, for example, transitional jobs. And then we also have a number of jobs for folks who are re-entering our workforce. And those are jobs where we do help folks find them, and there is a subsidy. Even the federal government, for example, has a bump and an incentive to hire folks who are, for example, coming out of our corrections department. So there are so many programs coming from both the federal government and the state government in order to help people connect with the economy. This is just one example.
Okay.
So there will still be an income test, because you don't want that $1 million earner to come in to Sherry Tussler and say, hey, I would like some food from the food bank today. That's just not fair, and it's not cool. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you are helping the person who is trying to work very hard toward their American dream. And there are a number of programs doing that. Our Transitional Milwaukee Jobs program, our W-2 program, our Wisconsin Shares program, which is our taxpayer subsidized daycare program, which we are doing something new and innovative with in order to help people who are starting to earn more money still pay for a daycare provider that maybe they spent a really long time researching and they really love. But in the past, the income test we were talking about, where you kind of bump up against it, would say, well, you know what, you've done a lot of research and you chose this daycare and it's at a certain level and it costs a certain amount, and the taxpayers, you know, helped you with this Wisconsin Shares program. But now that you're going to be making a little bit more money because you took a promotion, we're not going to fund your daycare anymore.
Yeah, and that is what happens to a lot of people. Maybe they try to get a second job under the W-2 program, and then they make too much money, but in reality, they're not
These are the
able
tough
to
choices.
Yeah.
Right? So in the Wisconsin Shares program, we're changing that. We're doing something very special. What we're doing is, so we call that a cliff, a benefits cliff, because the moment you take that promotion or make $1 more or make a little overtime, you essentially get that benefit ending, and it feels like you're just jumping off a cliff, because
they're right back where they started ultimately.
Well, either that or you feel like you're completely dependent on your own constant success to make it to the next promotion in order to float what you would not have been able to afford. But maybe you had a little nest egg that you were saving up, and then you use all that money, but then what if the business that you're working for folds? Or what if there's a healthcare disaster at home, or a car accident and you have to pay to repair the whole front end of your car? What happens then? Well, that's why in Wisconsin Shares, that taxpayer subsidized daycare program, now what we're saying is, hey, listen, you earn $3 more, $3 over what would have been okay for the income test in the past. We're just going to make you copay an extra $1. Earn $3 more, copay an extra $1. That's like earning your way off of it, the way it would happen in the traditional economy. But that's how those programs are helpful, when instead of a cliff, you actually have kind of like a zero entry pool. You ever been to a splash pad and you see you're up to your ankle and then your shin and then your knee, but you're never going to be in the deep
drown,
end until you actually know how to swim. This is that theory. Okay. We don't want anybody in the deep end before they've actually been given an opportunity to learn how to balance a budget and make ends meet properly and make those really hard decisions, but do it with the confidence that they're going to be okay.
All right, well, I'm going to stop you right there, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so we'll look at a few more issues that I think are important to discuss and to find out more about, and we'll do it right after this. We'll continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch right after this.